Welcome to the Heat of Command podcast, mastering the art of fire service leadership.
Where we, your hosts, aim to teach you how to use introspection and self-reflection to be your most authentic, genuine self, leader, and human being.
And now, here are your hosts. This is Kyle Matusik.
And Carrie Henderson. Thanks for joining. Welcome back, everybody. I feel like it's been a minute since we've recorded an episode. We were so consistent dropping an episode every Monday, and then weather gets warm and you know how that rolls. Everybody knows how that rolls. But today we want to talk about something near and dear to Kyle and I's both our hearts. And I think most people in the fire service nowadays is firefighter health. What's out there for firefighter health and what's old tried and true stuff that is worth revisiting, and what are some of the new things that are out there. It's summer here in Virginia, getting to be summer, and everybody's getting bikini body ready, right, Kyle?
Yeah, it's getting to summer here now too. And yeah, this is, it's just another tool for leaders within our industry to really, how do we take care of our people? And I think, there's some challenges, of course, when we talk health and wellness, but there's a lot of good things that are going on and how important it is to overall firefighter health, in the job that we do. But it's an interesting topic, and it's very interesting how, it's just like everything. Every department or organization just runs things so differently. And there's a lot of organizations out there that are really trying hard to push some of this stuff. But as we get into this episode talking health and wellness, it's interesting. You said, the weather's getting nicer and we're not as consistent. And it's kind of like, yeah, we got to take care of our, our mind a little bit, and we got to relax and enjoy, that family time and that time away from just work, and worrying about everything else going on. So in terms of health and wellness, it's good to have that time to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the finer things in life and the simple things in life too. When we talk health and wellness, it's both that physical and that mental health. Like, what are we doing, and how could leaders better initiate and institute health and wellness programs within their organization?
Yeah, I think today I'd like for us to talk about big things. So like the big picture things that leadership and an organization can do to help promote health and wellness and all that good stuff. And that can be programs, or it can just be culture wise, or encouraging it, or giving time for it, or offering classes or courses related to health topics. I also want to talk about today how company officers can set that example, right? We talk a lot about company officers setting the culture. And I see it in our department that we have some company officers that are very physically fit, take very good care of their bodies, and not talking the way their bodies look, but just what they put into their bodies and how they take care of themselves. And it's contagious. It's contagious to the people around them. And I love to see some of the stations that work for those guys and girls and what they're doing to take care of themselves. And it's pretty cool. And then also talk about individually what you can do as an individual to take care of yourself, even if no one around you is supporting it. Some of the things that you could do that are pretty simple.
Yeah, I think this is one of the areas where it's really simple, when we look at leadership, like lead by example. And this is one thing where, it holds a lot of truth behind that. And it's something very easy to do, just without even instituting any policies, anything. Are you walking the walk? And are we walking our walk in every aspect? But when I think it comes to wellness, like, it's very easy for people to kind of copycat that, or want to be the sense of belonging within that realm of health and wellness. So is the example being set? And if not, like, how do we get on that path to start setting an example? Because look, our job is physically demanding at a moment's notice. Right after a meal, 2:00 in the morning, it doesn't matter. And what's expected of us as far as performance on the job and on the fire ground is very substantial to the physical fitness demands of our bodies. And if we're not maintaining those, that's where we get into a lot of trouble. So it's so important to be that leader that represents that, and how important this is in reducing firefighter fatalities, cancer risk. I mean, the list can go on and on. What we know, I think most listeners out there know what exercise is and eating well does for us. And it's like, okay, let's go. Let's go and let's get it going. Let's make it a priority within our organizations.
Yeah. So back, gosh, how many years ago? 5, 6, 7 years ago, however long, our county, the county as a whole, did a 2035 strategic plan. So they wanted to build out a strategic plan through the year 2035. And each department within the county was required to contribute their portion of the plan. And so we took it very seriously in the fire department. And I was pretty new into upper level management at that point. I'd just been promoted to battalion chief. And the fire chief, I mean, we went over and over and over in meetings and brainstorming sessions and work sessions of what would that look like for us if we had to look out to 2035 in the fire service, what would it look like for us? And we kept coming back to health and wellness had to be number one. It had to be goal number one for us, because anything else you do, if you don't have that, it's nothing else is supported. So we put a big priority and put it first. And we wanted our people to recognize, like, hey, if we have 10 goals, the order that they're listed in means something. And number one was firefighter health and wellness. And so that meant things like physicals. We hadn't had a fire department physical since, I think, 2008. It was crazy. They had cut our physicals and they're like, oh, your insurance offers an annual checkup. I'm like, do you know what that incorporates? Like a blood pressure check and how you feeling, and, step on the scale and you're out of here. Maybe some labs if you're lucky. So we fought really hard and putting that in the strategic plan, I think, really helped show how important it was to us. And we got physicals back shortly thereafter. And we're on like year 4 or 5 of, I don't know if you've heard of LifeScan. They're at all the trade shows, but LifeScan is a mobile firefighter physical company. They come out of Florida and they do a very comprehensive 4-hour physical with all your blood work. They do ultrasounding of all your parts and pieces, and then cardiac stress test and a fitness evaluation, just everything you can think of, cancer, lots of cancer screenings. And I think there's 2 ways you could look at physicals in the fire service. And I think some organizations, when they present that, hey, we're going to do these new really comprehensive physicals, people get nervous and they're like, oh, they're looking for something to get rid of me, or they're trying to whatever. Why in the world would any fire service in today's culture want to try to get rid of anybody?
Right.
Why would we come up with ways to try to lose people? No way. The whole point and the way we really wanted people to feel about it was, this is for you. This is for you, because we want you to have a long, prosperous career, make it all the way to retirement and feel good in your body, not have injuries, not have to come off the floor and go to light duty or early retirement or disability or whatever it is. And then after that, enjoy your retirement, because we can retire so early and there's a lot of years left. And your body, you want your body to be able to sustain that and carry you well into your 80s or 90s or whatever your goal in life is. But physicals, I think, was the first thing. If I could talk about something that as a department, as an agency, or your big leadership could do, is offering a good physical, and not a check the box physical, not we have to have one, but a good one that really is looking out for your people and giving you trends. So we get trends afterwards of, you had this many people with, we don't get any names, but this many people with hypertension that's untreated, or you had this many people with fatty livers. And then you can really dial in some of your programming after that to focus on that. Like, hey guys, let's make sure we're eating healthy, or maybe medication if it's hypertension or whatever it is. But you can, your training and education can really, oh, and another thing we found out was some of the hearing stuff. And we don't have a great hearing protection program at all. So it's like, hey, what are you guys doing for hearing protection? And that came up from a physical.
Yeah. That's definitely, excuse me, definitely a great place to start is, a good comprehensive physical that's meeting NFPA 1582. And a lot of times it's just one of those things that's required, and it can be that check the box type thing. And it's, again, are we making our people our priority? And if we're not prioritizing physicals and wellness, then the answer to that question is simply no, right? I mean, that's the industry. We work in a very hazardous industry. Whether you're busy or not, it is still hazardous. Everything you do, from sleep patterns to the meals that are eaten to what's required of us physically. And if our physicals and our physical wellness is not a top priority in your organization, you are literally failing your people. And I will really stand on that, because I look at pulling a hose, forcing a door, right? There are absolutely techniques, and we can refine our techniques to become better at that. But at the end of the day, you need to be physically fit, and you could teach a monkey how to pull a hose, right? I mean, a 2.5 is heavy, but if you're physically fit, you're going to be able to do it. And you're going to be able to recover from that. And you're going to be able to sustain a high level of performance during the course of whatever it is you need to do. So instead of prioritizing, yes, I'm not taking away any firefighter training. I don't want that to get misunderstood. We do need to train on the things that we do. Absolutely. But if we're not training on our physical fitness, all that is just nonsense. Because if we have people who are out of shape and they're not working out and they're eating like crap and they're not doing the things they're supposed to do, who cares how many times we pull a hose to train them? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to be physically able to do it. So I am all about, making this stuff the top priority, looking at budgets to re-itemize things, to make it to where you have an extremely comprehensive physical that is checking for all those things. A lot of times I hear, well, this is just, something that go to your own doctor. Like, we're going to do this. We know it's not the best. And that you need to go to your own doctor, which, we're all adults. So yeah, go take care of yourself. And if you're physical, so if your department, and you're listening, your department doesn't offer physicals, you should be seeking out your own physical. So let's just put that out there as well. Like, yes, I do believe organizations should be prioritizing this, but we just know some aren't. So you need to take some personal accountability and responsibility for your own health as well, and make sure you're going and getting good comprehensive physicals, and share 1582 with your primary and say, this is stuff I need done, these cancer screenings, blah, blah, blah. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to happen.
Yeah. And shameless plug, if you go to the Firefighter Cancer Support Network, their website has a document that if you do have to use your own primary care instead of a department physical, there is a document on there that you can take to them. So Firefighter Cancer Support Network, check them out. And there's a ton of resources on there for you.
Yeah, and now, like you mentioned, that one company James City County is using, there's multiple out there nowadays that have become more aware of the needs of our industry. And, they travel around and they do all this stuff. And I think it's great. And I think it has some positive impacts on your organization. Another thing I want to hit on that you mentioned, the punitive aspect of all this. And, it might be kind of that generational thing, maybe, that some people are fearful that this is all going to be punitive and it's not for me. You're doing this to get me, The same with a fitness program, like, you're out to get me. And that's just not, if that's your mentality as leadership, well, that's, again, you're not worrying about your people. But if we truly care about our people, and the people are number one on our list, our number one priority, because they're the ones who are going to go out and complete our mission as firefighters, then it is not punitive, and it is for your benefit, so you can live and have a great career, long, healthy after the career. So, we need to change that mindset too, because it goes into fitness as well, where a lot of challenges by us, again, this is where unions get involved, and it's an us versus them type thing. If we're going to have mandatory fitness, is it written in the contract? But then administration's concerned that if they get hurt doing that, then it's going to be workers' comp claims. And it's like, well, let's look at workers' comp claims without a fitness program. And why can't we research that on how much that is going to save us? And there's a lot of challenges with that, especially for smaller organizations. How do you get that kind of data? But it's like, just use a simple logic, right? Like, if we institute physical fitness, let's say from today, and we've never had it before, we need to understand that, yes, there might be some injuries, but over the course of time, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, by then that's all going to be taken care of. And from this day forward, we're going to start making progressive steps to where we're going to prevent injuries. We're going to prevent cancers. We're going to prevent early retirement. We're going to reduce workers' comp claims, and that's going to be over time. but we have to just have that motivation and desire to want to take care of our people. And I think that's where it all starts. And it all starts with the leadership within an organization. And if we're not prioritizing this, like all this falls to the wayside.
Yeah, and you have to look at it too from it look at the research out there. It is proven if you get injured or you, God forbid, get cancer or some other, significant illness, job related or not, if you are in shape, you are already moving your body on a regular basis, your recovery time is going to be much, much shorter and easier than if you were out of shape or in poor health to start with. So, like you said, you can't look at it from a dollars today, right? Because that
Right.
is not taking care of your people. That is thinking of your people as a dollar
Yep.
figure. And that if you are an organization, you're a leader right now, and that's how you're thinking of it, hashtag you're doing it wrong.
You needed to come to my state and say that more. I'm
Would you
not going to
like
call
me
out
to
any
make the
specific
answer?
departments, but yeah, it is. And again, I think that's where you get an us versus them, where it's union versus administration, and you're a dollar figure, and that's all you are. And the day you retire, you're replaced, and we don't care. You
Well,
know,
and I don't want people to think like if you're a fire chief and you're listening to this and you're like, who is this Carrie Henderson who thinks she can say something like that? You don't understand how budgets work, or you don't understand where the money comes from. That's you're wrong. I do. I've been involved with this for a long time, and I understand how that works. And and you absolutely have to figure it out and figure out
yeah,
how you make it work. It's not cheap. Getting this stuff started is not cheap. But when you look at the longevity of your employees and not having to replace somebody. And then you have somebody with 20 years experience, which is way better for your organization than every few years replacing folks who have little to no experience. And then the workers' comp claims and the long-term injuries or paying out disability or all the other things and just what's good for your people. And then you know what happens? People want to come work for your organization. Then you're not short staffed. Then you're not paying $1.5 million in overtime over your overtime budget. It's it doesn't just reduce the injuries, it reduces accidents. It correlates to so many other things that you have to be willing to think about, and you have to be willing to stand up and argue, with your city council, your board of supervisors, your mayor, your governor, whoever you have to report to, and you can't just say, well, it's going to cost $550 per firefighter for this physical and we can't afford it.
yeah. Yeah, and one thing me and you always talk about is those hard conversations. And this is one of those areas where it might be that hard conversation with the people you just mentioned or with the rank and file of your organization to figure out what direction we want to go in. And then the question becomes, how do we do this? Not if we can, but how do we do this? Where obviously numbers are going to have to be looked at. There's going to be there's going to be give and take, right? That's what the budgeting process is for, to really examine that stuff. So the question needs to be, how do we institute this? How do we move this forward? How do we improve? How do we take better care of our people and start answering those questions and doing the hard work that's going to take? Because it's not going to be easy, because a lot of the points you brought up are absolutely right? It's dollars and figures. It's this, it's that. Well, how do we combat all these things? It's the punitive aspect, like people getting in trouble or getting hurt or workers' comp claims. How do we combat all that? And it all can be done if you want to take the road down that, but it is a challenging one. But that's why people want leadership roles. They want those challenges, not just to sit in a position and not do anything to progress an industry. So, without a doubt, it will be challenging, especially if you don't have anything or you have something that is so outdated or just not good. It's just checking a box. Like, if you're going to move this forward and really provide for your organization, it is a lot of work. And in my opinion, and I think your opinion, it should be your number one priority. And if it's not, like, what are we doing in leadership roles then?
Yeah. So let's segue off physicals because I think
Yeah.
we got all up
Well, we
all up
bridged into the kind of all of
like
the wellness stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. What about so you talked a little bit about physical fitness programs. So just there's a lot of avenues out there for that kind of thing in our department, and I'm just curious, like if you guys have anything. We are required to work out 30 minutes a day. We have really great fitness equipment. Well, I wouldn't say really great. We have decent fitness equipment in every station. Some have better workout rooms and workout equipment than others, but everybody has a basic set of stuff to work out, and some people utilize it more than others. But what we do have that I think is different than a lot of departments is an annual physical agility test. We call it the Work Performance Evaluation, WPE, and we do that annually from the fire chief down. The fire chief comes and takes it. The assistant chiefs take it. The battalion chiefs, everybody goes and takes it, and it may have served its purpose. Like it may have kind of run its. We've been doing it for a while now, annually, and I think there may be something better out there now. But in lieu of that, I think it's important because in your physical, most NFPA physicals, you get some sort of WFI, the fitness initiative that's part of 1582 does some sort of evaluation about probably like they do, I think it's push-ups and plank and wall sits or so. I can't remember. Anyways, there's a jump thing now in it, in the new edition, how high you can jump, which I'm not sure how that like correlates. But anyways, but I don't think that captures, and also don't think your cardiac stress test captures your ability to do work for a sustained period of time. So you may be able to do 50 push-ups in whatever the time period is, or you may be able to plank for 2 minutes or whatever. But can you, endurance-wise, do a decent amount of really hard work for 15 minutes? And I think that's what the importance of a test or an evaluation like work performance that we do, or an annual physical agility, or some sort of, even if it's a skills-based assessment, but you do things consecutive. You don't just go force a door and you're done, right? Because we see guys and girls on the fire ground all the time that they do one thing and they're spent.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you make sure that's not happening? And I think tests or evaluations like these are good for that. And it keeps you motivated, maybe not positively motivated, negatively motivated, because you know you're going to take this test every year.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Again, non-punitive, but just a benchmark for where you're at, and some recommendations from the results on where you should go, and I think could be a very valuable tool for you as an individual, and then as an organization, like where do we need to work? And it gives you some real data and information on the weaknesses and strengths of the organization when it comes to physical fitness. So I couldn't agree with that more, But again, non-punitive, just to kind of this benchmark. Here's where you're at. This is
ours is punitive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you don't pass it, you take it again in 6 months. If you don't pass it, take it again in 6 months, and you have 2 years. And if you haven't passed it in 2 years, then you look for another position in the county or somewhere else.
And like me personally, I'm like it. Look, the demands of our job are physically challenging. And if we're not meeting that physical demand, you don't belong in the profession. Now, with that said, if we were to institute, or organizations that are doing some type of fitness agility exam or test, the follow-up to that would be, if they're not meeting the benchmark, what are we doing as an organization to improve them? Because I think there needs to be that as well alongside it. Yeah. If we're going to hold people accountable to this standard, we need to make sure that we have things in place to where they can meet that standard. And then if not, absolutely. And that's my personal stance. This job isn't meant for everybody. As we get older, things change. I get it. But the risks involved of keeping people in a profession that's physically demanding who aren't physically able, we see the repercussions of that every day from the secret list and all this other stuff. And we see it. And it doesn't need to be that way. And again, it's not to punish you. It's to motivate you and tell you, hey, this job is challenging. It's going to ask a lot of you physically. We have all these tools here to keep you physically fit. If you're not meeting the standards, something's got to change. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that's a good approach. And again, there's a lot of challenges in instituting something like that. But that's where, again, we go back to effective leadership and taking care of your people. It's the hard conversations, the hard decisions, the unpopular decisions that need to be made. But in the long term, this is a benefit for the organization and each individual that walks through your doors. Because as these new people walk in, it is the norm from day one. So it's drawing that line in that sand at some point and being like, this is what we're doing. This is the expectation. And again, this is what we're going to go. Again, challenges here back in Illinois with unions administration. It's just another layer of challenges. But can we overcome these? Absolutely. Through that effective leadership approach and hard conversations and really challenging the norm of what has been and what are we going to be and having those conversations.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go back to talking about the money aspect of things and how everything gets funded. And I think, and this is if you've never been part of budgeting or watching city council meetings or board of supervisors meetings or whoever, your however your government is set up, I, I think government officials, eh, they forget. We're part of this. We're part of the employment system. So we're part of the however many hundreds of employees your city or county has, and they tend to want to treat us the same. You don't get any special treatment just because you're the fire department, right? But you can't look at us that way because they want to say, like we've heard this argument before. Well, why would we pay a $550 physical for you guys when social services doesn't get one? It's like, well, if you, then them too. Well, that no. And I think you constantly have to be reminding your government officials and people out there, if you're a firefighter listening, it's so hard to convince people that aren't in our industry how different we are and how different our jobs are, and the stress and the physical requirements of our jobs, and shift work and being up all night, and how it messes up your circadian rhythm, and how that puts you more at risk for cancer and other health ailments and just all the things. And so it's this balancing act all the time of convincing HR and everybody else that we are different and it's okay to treat us differently. You have to. We cannot be treated the same as someone who works 40 hours a week at a desk. Boom.
Bam.
Hashtag doing it wrong.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So, and then going over into just regular fitness, like working out, and what does that look like within organizations? And I think this is an area where, when we talk about leadership and everything we talk about, there's no one single way. And everybody's a lot of individuals, and some people like their own things, from bro workouts to CrossFit to running and all this other stuff, and I get it. And, is the step one, just everybody needs to work out, period, end of story. And then how do we continually build on that too? Because I think I've been in the fitness industry for quite a while too, and with a background in that. And I look at some of the things, and I think as we age, it is more and more important to continue to lift weights, especially on our job, and especially, Carrie, as a female, right?
Yep.
When you look at osteoporosis and how soon that can set in, weightlifting is so important. Now, I'm not saying you need a 315-pound back squat, a 400-pound deadlift, a 225 bench. Like, you don't need to have those numbers, but you got to lift some weights for strength, when we look at some of these high interval, intense workouts, HIIT training, I think it's called, right? Yep. That's great, right? It can replicate a fireground. We can do that stuff, but it takes away a strength component, because when we're lifting weights that heavy or that light for that fast, right, we're working on muscular endurance, which we need, but we still need to build muscular strength. And that's, that kind of 5 sets of 8, 5 sets of 10, into that 6 to 12 rep range of what we're looking for. So it's having those programs. And a lot of times, there's a couple resources out there. I know there's the peer fitness trainer certification that firefighters can get. And there's plenty of people within communities that you can bring into your organizations to do program design, and physical therapists who work with firefighters. Like, there are so many resources out there to get programs for individuals, because a 21-year-old might not have the same workout as a 50-year-old, and that's fine. So do we have those resources available to where we can appropriately give a good program for people to follow that's going to incorporate muscular endurance training, muscular strength training, cardiorespiratory training, to where we're hitting all these things, because all those things matter in our job, not just one of them, so we can't just single that out. Now, some exercise is better than no exercise, so I want to put that out there first. However, it's how do we build on this and progress it to ensure that we're giving the appropriate training to our members, and then utilizing the resources that are most likely in all your communities. And they would love coming into your organizations to help with establishing a program. One thing with the peer fitness I think it's peer fitness trainer, is it? Yes. Sometimes, like in that realm, and we've talked about like how early on, way back when we first started this, and I think in my paper, your paper, you might have hit on it when we first started with that Darley paper. I hit on, when we're teaching leadership, I think for me, people who understand human behavior should be teaching that. And those people are not firefighters. So I kind of look at fitness kind of the same way. Like, I think there's some good fitness people within our industry, absolutely. However, sometimes it's good to have that outside perspective looking in, because they might be more comfortable saying the hard things, telling somebody, hey, you gotta, we gotta do something, and then evaluating an appropriate program on an individual basis. I think is so important when we look at the sustainability of a fitness program, is that individualistic program design. Because like I said, we're all different and we all have different needs or injuries or weaknesses and strengths. So I am a big supporter of outside resources coming in to better program a fitness program for individuals.
Yeah, and I when I was younger, I was all into CrossFit, and it served me very, very well,
Mhm.
very functionally related to our jobs. And I was in the best shape of my life when I was pregnant with my son. It made my recovery after having him. I could come back to work, and felt good in my body and everything. But as I got older, you know, I, it wasn't that I didn't wanna do CrossFit anymore. It just I had to look for something else that was more suited to my age and, preventing injury and stuff like that. And so now I lift weights with a trainer who has no background in the fire service, and she trains me 2 days a week for strength training, then I do some cardio and some other stuff on my own. But and it's so crazy, and there may be other firefighters out there listening who have gone through same thing I went through, but going from CrossFit to lifting weights with a trainer 2 days a week, I felt like I'm not doing enough. This isn't enough. Like, I'm not doing enough. Like, it's not hard enough. It's not, and it was hard, it's hard, don't get me wrong, she
Right.
pushes me. But I went through this, like, grieving period and I almost quit because I was like, "If you're not doing CrossFit, you're not doing
Right.
it," but now I've been with her over a year, and man, I lost 30 pounds just, not just with just that, but, like, strength training, like you hit it the nail on the head. For women, it's a must. It is a must.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of that individualistic program design. And it's not, I hear all the CrossFitters like in the background saying, CrossFit's for every age, you could do it. Like, I get it though. I still kind of dabble a little bit here and there, get my workouts in. Murph just, last week,
Oh,
a
yeah.
little
That's
different than years past, but hey, still out there doing it. So it changes, and my program has changed, and what I used to do to what I do now, just a little bit smarter. I can get out of bed, right? Because the CrossFit has that competitive edge, and sometimes you feel like you're younger than you really are, and you're like, I shouldn't have done that, and you're feeling it for 5 days. So I totally get it, and it's fun, but not every workout do we need to be laying on the ground, dripped in sweat, huffing and puffing, and we look at. Like, yeah, I can nerd out a little bit on this stuff. Like, you look at base metabolic rate and you look at all these things and how muscular strength is just so important to all that. Like, if we want to burn more calories just sitting around, you need to have more muscle. More muscle burns more calories. Like, these are simple equations. So we need strength training, like strict strength training to go on along, like I said, with everything else. So, and sometimes if you're just doing the Metcons or the high intensity stuff, we're not building that strength. But, your example of just that individual program design on what it does for you is, I mean, that's, yes, we're all different, like I said. But that fitness aspect, again, it relates to everything that we do in our job, and a lot from the firefighter side, right? We need to understand fire dynamics and fire behavior and smoke reading and all. Like, I get all that educational stuff. But when it comes to actually putting water on a fire, climbing a ladder and pulling somebody out a window, going to the roof and venting, all these things, taking the stretcher up a couple stairs, using your stair chair to bring somebody down on an EMS run. These are all strength-based stuff. So we need to have a solid base of physical fitness to do our job. So it's really looking at how to initiate that, make it non-punitive, have the conversations to get it going, and then where does it go from here?
Yeah. So let's talk nutrition.
Yeah.
So nutrition, I think culturally in your organization can be a thing. It's something individually you can take care of regardless of what the rest of your shift is doing. It can be hard. I get it. Like I've definitely worked on shifts where every every meal they wanted, cheeseburgers and big plates of spaghetti and stuff. But I
There's
know a lot
nothing
of
wrong with
shifts.
spaghetti.
I know that. I know that,
I just
Kyle.
had to put that in there.
But not the, you know,
Right.
2,000 calorie portion of it that's getting consumed in firehouses every day. But I lost my train of thought, I think. But so if your company officer, let's say you're the battalion chief running a whole shift, you can really set the example of, hey, let's eat together. Let's come up with a meal plan for the cycle of some good stuff. We can grocery shop based on sales. What does everybody like to eat that we could together as a group make sure we're putting good stuff in our bodies, and not everyone's going to be on board with that. I know that, I've seen that, but if you can get a group of you, it's so much easier to do it than do it alone. I always loved when, like, I worked like on several crews that would be like, yeah, we're gonna do better, and we would, and we made an effort, and sometimes we fell off the bandwagon, but it was just much nicer than trying to do it by yourself at the station.
Yeah, I think again, nutrition is one of those things. It's that individual, like what your needs, where are you lacking, and what do you need? And we look at, you know, food that's nutritionally dense, right? And a quick story for everybody. My wife and I, we were hardcore paleo for a long time. I didn't eat bread. I didn't eat pasta. Like we were crazy. All right. We would search out bacon that didn't have any sugar or, like all the whole 9 yards. And eventually, we had kids, life, all this stuff. And it's like, this is just not sustainable anymore. And, we had some challenges, and like, I like to eat. I like good food. I'm half Italian. Like Italian food is awesome. So then it was like looking at our approach and how it changed over time. And I think there's a couple of things that I see. Like number one, it's eat real food. Don't care what it is, just as long as it's real food. And I think a lot of times convenience factor, especially for busy firehouses, it's that convenience factor. So when we look at ingredients, are we just buying the ingredients that are quicker to utilize versus making it from scratch? So, a seasoning packet versus actually buying the seasonings. There's a difference because you look at the seasoning packets and there's bad ingredients in those. So that was kind of our approach at home, like looking just real food. Like we don't care what we eat as long as we're real food. Now we make our own pasta, make my own marinara, my own sauces, everything. We eat pasta all the time. It's great. I love it. But and I'm making up for all those paleo years, right? And we make our own bread. We make our own sourdough bread, So I think a lot of it is like real ingredients and staying away from the processed foods first, right? That's like step one, because we have to dial in like what to eat and then how to appropriately eat that. And I think I don't like the word dieting,
Right.
I think it's just an education of what we should be eating and what food's supposed to taste like, because you could make healthier food taste very good. So it's kind of having that approach, okay, real food, and then how do we incorporate that into our organization? And I think, it's just being that again, conscious of that and being the example. When I was hardcore paleo, man, it was so funny. There were just some people. I had this one boss, and he'd always be looking at what I was eating, and then one time the guys tried to get me to tell him that I eat dandelions because they thought he would start eating dandelions if I told him, and he might have. So it's just really funny, but you're right. Like it can be contagious as well, and people want to be involved with that. And I think making food, and breaking bread is so important, even though, my current situation, I'm not that involved in a lot of that, but, that's a whole nother story. But it's just that community aspect and having good food, good quality, nutritious food. And you get that from real food, not processed. The second thing that really concerns me within our industry, and I think I watched some videos on this, but there's an excess amount of energy drinks being had.
Yeah.
And, those scare me because just you look at the ingredient list on that, and I'm just like, here's a good place to start for everybody. Like, read that ingredient list and look at that stuff, and what you don't even know what that stuff is doing. And a lot of that stuff is just so bad for your body. and we're taking in these chemicals and all this stuff, and it's not doing good things, and a lot of stimulants, which increases blood pressure, increases heart rate, and does all these things. So and you see that, and you look at the military, nursing, and fire, police, it's coffee, nicotine, and bad food, right? I mean, historically, that's what it is. So it's moving on from that and learning and growing. And again, this is another area. Bring those outside resources into your organization. Bring a cook into your organization. Like, this is how we cook good food, and not just using bad processed vegetable oils and processed foods, but here's some good quality ingredients to make a good spaghetti and meatballs. I think you can make a healthy spaghetti and
Oh,
meatballs, but
100%.
when we're not buying, processed pasta and processed marinara sauce and processed meatballs, like what, we're losing a lot of some of those good quality ingredients. So, it's just looking at that, and it's real food, good ingredients. And like, for me, that's like a good starting point to kind of start ridding of some of the processed foods that we see. But I also get it, sometimes you're running and gunning, and you're running back to back to back calls, and you just need to get food in that belly. Well, what are the healthy snacks that are around the firehouse? Do we have those options? Do you have a fruit, but at the same token, I think I've seen some progress throughout their career. I don't know if you guys do, if they work overtime, somebody buys a goodie. A lot of times over the summer, the freezers would be filled with just junk food. And then it got over time, that would switch to fruit bowls and watermelons and all that other stuff. So, there's some progress, but, I think there's still a lot of challenges in the world of nutrition.
Yeah. And for me, I, I think for so long, and this is probably the product of being a woman and growing up in the 80s and 90s, where everything was diet this or light or non-fat, and it was all junk. It was just total junk. And it was the thought that you had to eat low calorie and low carb, and you deprive yourself of foods that are good and taste good. And so then what happens is you rebel, and you eventually fall off the bandwagon and you eat all the junk because you can't sustain that lifestyle. And so when I got older and realized you have to convince yourself there's no bad food, right? There's really no bad food. It's just what you do with it, really. Now, yes, energy drinks probably are a bad food. So I preface that with most foods are not bad, I guess. But when you know, see firefighters that are overweight and they're like, I have to go on this like extreme diet and lose 50 pounds in a month, which is not realistic at all. And then what happens? It's not sustainable. They give up, they binge eat on all the junk that they were missing out on. Where if you could just incorporate some of those things that you really like and taste good, and just plan for them, and plan to also have some other really great nutritious things, it's much easier. Then it's not a diet. It's just how you eat, and
Yeah, it's
much easier.
normal, right? And it's a balance, right? Tonight we're ordering pizza at our house, yeah, right? Like, it's pizza night, and we're fine with that. And it's a balance, right? And it's a learning process. I remember one of my first personal trainer jobs. Like, most gyms, if you're a personal trainer, all you are is a salesperson, right? It's like these companies really don't care about fitness; they care about sales and money. Well, they were like pushing me to sell supplements. And I'm like, I can't put these people on supplements. They don't even know how to eat right. They wake up and have 5 hot dogs. Like, I need to start with teaching them how to eat right. And then we can look at supplementing if they're not getting the things that they need. But like, we need to crawl here first. They need to
Yeah.
learn what a good breakfast looks like, what a good lunch looks like, good snacks, good dinners, like how to cook. Let's start there. And then over time, we evaluate and look at that in terms of nutrition and what we're putting in our bodies. And again, we have to fuel our bodies to get ready to go out and do the job. Because if you don't have the proper energy stores within your body, lightheadedness, passing out, things like that, blood sugar fluctuations like that, all hampers your ability to do the job you signed up for. I think that's at the end of the day, right? Why did we get in this job, right? Our mission is to save lives and property. I mean, first and foremost, save lives. Yeah, and you need to be physically, mentally, and nutritionally capable of doing that. And what we see a lot of times is that I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people are not any of those things. And what are we doing as organizations to change that? And, that's where instituting good strategies to move an organization forward to where we are definitely prioritizing these things, because a physically fit, emotionally connected, a nutritionally intelligent person is going to be more capable on that fire ground. That's a fact, and I would debate anybody on that. So, instituting these things, I think should be a number one priority.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other. It's everything changes all the time. So like intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting was everyone should be intermittent fasting, a 16-hour fast daily. So I adhered to that for quite a while, and I actually really liked it because I don't really care to eat breakfast most mornings. I'm not hungry. So I was like, yes, I'm finally doing something that's actually nutritious, because everybody had always told me, oh, no, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, now studies are coming out, especially for women, that all the intermittent fasting, I won't say all because I don't know the statistics, but a lot of the intermittent fasting research was done on men. And for women now, extended fast past 12-ish, 12 to 14 hours actually increases our cortisol, and it really screws our hormones up. So
Interesting.
it's like, great. But, it's just another one of those things that all of this stuff is constantly evolving as science gets better and research gets better and we learn more. So you got to be looking for the what's real, not just, what you saw on TikTok or what you saw on Insta or whatever. So I will put a plug out. I don't know if you ever listen to Huberman Lab podcast.
I don't
Dr.
think so.
Huberman. Dr. Huberman is they're a microbiologist at Stanford, I believe, but he interviews the world's greatest, all things health related, all over the spectrum of people he interviews and talks to. But Huberman
Oh,
Lab
yeah, yeah,
podcast,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you wanna hear what's coming and what's real and true, and it's just like he talks about longevity and just all kinds of great stuff. I love his podcast, so I have to put that out there. But yeah, so just intermittent fasting was a thing, and like right now I hear a lot about sunlight first thing in the morning, and you and I have talked about this is, getting sunlight first thing in the morning, like not artificial light, but real light first thing in the morning for like 10 minutes before you ever look at a screen is supposed to have such big health benefits. So I've been trying that out. My husband will say he definitely thinks it has improved my mood because I'm 44. I can be a little cranky sometimes. So I've been trying that. But like, what are your thoughts on like saunas? Saunas are a big thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love saunas. Now,
But
this is the one thing, a lot of times just as society wise, not even our industry, we want that quick fix, right? And the quickest thing to being physically fit, nutritionally intelligent is very simple things. And a lot of times we just don't want those simple answers because they're like more work. Like I said, like start with eating real food and just go out and exercise. That's it. Don't hold yourself to anything. Like just go do something physically and just eat real food. Real food. Like if you look at an ingredient packet and you don't know what it is or it's a weird chemical, don't eat it. Like start there. Like that's it. That's all you have to do. And then slowly from there, you just learn and you progress. So there's no quick fixes, right? There just isn't. And it's about learning a new way, setting a new kind of routine on how you cook, how you eat when you work out. I did fast for a little bit, the 16-8. For me, I was just too hungry. Like I couldn't, because I work out in the mornings and like my workouts were suffering big time. And I just can't do it. I have to eat before I work out or else it's a disaster. Saunas, I absolutely love sitting in the sauna for 20 minutes. Oh, it is so nice. Now, there's a lot of research out there, infrared versus traditional. I'm all about the traditional. They get hotter. Most studies are done on the traditional saunas, and most of them come out of Iceland, I think, where everybody uses them like every day.
mhm.
The infrared saunas, I think how they market them to me is weird. I don't know if it's, they say it heats your body from the inside out. I'm like, is that even possible? Like, that doesn't make that doesn't equate in my head. So, and they're a lot lower temperature, but I feel great after a sauna. And, I don't know, I live, I think, a pretty healthy life. So I don't know the real impacts of what it's actually, I haven't done studies on myself to see, but I love saunas. In our organization, it's always something that comes up, like ever since I've
Yeah.
been there to get saunas. And
Yeah.
some firehouses have them, some don't, The other things, cold plunging. I've never done that. I don't know how I feel about cold. I'd rather sit in the hot
Yeah.
sauna.
Ice bath. Get you a
So
ice
yeah,
bath.
I know there's a bunch of people that do that as well, and I know there's studies out there as well. And it comes back to what works for you. What are you gonna adhere to? Because a lot of this stuff is gonna have benefits, to your overall health and where are you getting your information from and things like that. Like, don't believe us on any of this. Do kind of your own research, talk to your own doctors, seek out your own nutritionists and fitness people. Do all that work on your own for sure. But yeah, I've saunas all about the intermittent fasting like that. Like I said, for me, just I couldn't do it at all
Yeah. Yeah.
until
I've
the
started to eat breakfast some,
yeah.
or at least eat something earlier, just to make sure, I'm not increasing my cortisol or wreaking havoc on my hormones, because Lord knows I don't need that.
Yeah, and I think that cortisol thing, I think that's if people actually got that tested, myself included, like that's going to tell you a lot. And I think a lot of us lived high stress lives where that is going to be elevated. And it's those things that, okay, what can we do? Another fitness, and we look at these things like meditation and yoga and things like it. These things are just as important. As I've learned and continue to grow and get older, you that mind body connection is so important as well. And a lot of times, I shouldn't even say a lot of times. I mean, for me, I used to use fitness kind of as that stress reliever. But what I was really doing was kind of stressing my body even more because I was never taking care of my emotional wellness, my mental wellness. And it got to a point where like I couldn't do it anymore because the physical fitness I was doing was just overpowering a system that was already amped up, you know? So there we can start doing more damage than good, right? We're doing fitness. We think we're living this healthy lifestyle. You're being empowered by people around you. But at the end of the day, we're really hurting ourselves because you're so amped up emotionally and mentally just from whatever stresses of your life that we're just kind of damaging that system and just continuing throwing more at it. So, it's that balance of taking care of everything, our mind, our body, and it's so important to do both, and breaking that stigma, and because it still has a stigma on mental health, right? We'll hire a personal trainer, but a therapist, no, I'm good, and that's, to me, that's just, no, it's the same thing, right? So it's really that mind body connection, and making sure we're taking care of both. Because if we're just taking care of one and we're missing the other, you're still going to have problems. Even if you look physically fit and you're doing all these things, you might have jacked up cortisol levels or,
Inflammation markers,
right. All this stuff. So
stuff.
it's that balance of both. And sometimes a 30-minute meditation session is your workout for the day. Call it good. Sometimes when you go to therapy, you're so wiped out. Cool. Your mind just had a workout. You don't need to go to the gym. Like, take the day. You're good. You're not going to, overnight turn into messy slob overnight. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, give your body a break as well. So, again, that mind, body, and we're really working on both, I think, is the key to sustaining this career, and being happy in retirement and, building longevity. But it's both.
Yeah. And as we wrap this episode up, there's one more thing I want us to talk about. So I think it's so important for our listeners, especially in our industry, is sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm curious to see where sleep research goes in the next 5 years, because it's really coming out that it may be the most important factor to our health is quality sleep and the things that you can do. And in our job, gosh, our sleep is screwed up. And what can we do as industry leaders and organizations to help our folks navigate that? Because we can't prevent you having to get up in the middle of the night for calls, but what other things can we do to help? Since your circadian rhythm is messed up and it's all the markers that it screws up when you're woken up in the middle of the night and you have to go from 0 to hero in 5 seconds, and just all the things that sleep affects. And yeah, check out research on sleep health right now. And it's crazy what they're finding.
Yeah, and even at the firehouse, if you don't catch a run all night, you're still not sleeping well, right?
Yeah.
I think those studies are already done.
Yeah.
Like, you just never sleep well at work. Like, there was a therapist, a colleague of mine, that she told me once, like one time she went in a bunk room. I think she was doing ride time, and like she walked in and people were sleeping, and like she could feel the energy, like they're ready to go, but they're sleeping, and that's kind of how she explained it. And it's
Yeah.
like, so is that real good quality sleep? And then on our off days, what are we doing? You're not going to catch up, but are you ensuring that you're getting that good sleep that night? Or are we, doing the things that we shouldn't be for longevity, and then looking at overtime, 48s, how are we forcing people to work? All these things matter. And a lot, again, in my head and things that I'm accustomed to, it just comes, you signed up for this job, you better do it, or you're a dollar figure, we need this, we can't hire more people, no, so it's like the culture is just so stuck in like 20, 30 years when we talk health and wellness. And it's like, when is it going to change? Like what needs to happen? Because all the bad things are already happening. Firefighters are dying, right? Heart attacks, cancer, suicides, like it's all already happening. What else needs to happen to prove that there are major problems within our industry when it comes to physical fitness, nutrition, and mental wellness? Like what else needs to happen? I don't know. And the time is now. We have to start providing these environments, because you hit it on the head too with recruitment and retention. And we want new people in and joining organizations that they really care about you as an individual,
Yeah. I mean, I want to work somewhere I'm cared about.
Right?
Everyone does.
Everyone does. Yeah.
So,
For
all
sure.
right. Well, this was fun.
It was.
A little bit different. I liked it.
So do I.
Enjoyed it. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a healthy and safe week. And Kyle and I will probably be taking a little bit of time off from the podcast. Kyle's leaving for his annual summer vacation, and I'm super jealous. Him and his family do a really awesome, like countrywide camping trip every year kind of deal. And I've got some small trips planned here with my little family. So if you don't hear from us every week, don't worry, we're still around.
Getting ready for some new and exciting stuff in a little bit too. So we'll still be planning and working on some things and taking care of our mental health a little bit by checking out and just enjoying the finer things in life.
That's right. My favorite season,
Yeah,
summer.
absolutely.
Take care, everybody.
We'll see you. As we wrap up another episode, this has been Kyle
And Carrie
from the Heat of Command podcast.
Thank you, as always, for listening. Please make sure to follow and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And as always, we love the feedback. Keep it coming.
See you next time.